Welcome back, Conservancy kids. I'm here today with my friend Taylor again, and we are going to be talking about scat. So Taylor, what is this fancy word scat?
Well, the fancy word scat is, as we said, the fancy word, this science-y word for poop.
Poop, that's awesome. Now, I read that there was such a thing as scatology, or the study of scat. Why would anyone want to study poop?
Yeah, so poop is something produced by pretty much everything that's alive, right? Everything eats, and there's going to be leftovers, and that's what poop is, right? And it's something we can study because it can tell us what an animal is eating. It can also tell us what animals are in an area or a habitat without us needing to find the animal specifically.
Nice. And I'm guessing that if we know what an animal is eating, we can probably deduce where else it might have been outside that immediate area.
Yeah, absolutely. You could see that, oh, maybe it's getting a food from farther away and coming over here. And you can see things like that. You can also see, like, maybe there's a different diet throughout the year, so different food sources are available, so it's eating more vegetation than meat or something like that.
That's awesome. So when we are hiking, I think it would be pretty cool if we could help Conservancy kids and their family and friends be amateur scatologists. I know I would like to be one. So what are some tricks if you're on a trail and you see some poop that you're able to reach safely? What are some tips to identifying what may have made that poop and what's in it?
Yeah, great questions. So, I think finding scat on the trail is a lot of fun because you can do some investigation. It's kind of like your own little CSI right there while you're out having fun. So, first off, what I try to see is, does the poop look like it has some white stuff in it or not? That's going to tell you that if it does have some white stuff in it, that it's from a bird or reptile. That white stuff is actually called urea, which is part of the urine of the animal. And birds and reptiles pass all of their waste all at once all together, and that's why they have white stuff in their poop as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Efficient.
yeah, they're very efficient, very, like, get it done. So you have that, so you'll figure out if it's a bird or reptile. And generally with bird or reptile poop, it's very hard to actually figure out the specific species, so I wouldn't worry about getting too far in the details for that. But then if you look at other animals, especially mammals, which is what most of the poop is going to be, you're going to start with size. Is it really tiny, or like tiny pellets, or is it like a medium size, or is it like really big? And that's going to give you an idea of, like, okay, this is a big, small, or medium animal, and tell you, then you have to figure out more of the details of the scat itself, right? So you want to look at next the shape of the scat. So if you're looking at pellets, if they're really tiny, they're probably a rodent. Rodents have little tiny ovals, itty bitty. If you're looking at something bigger, it's likely a rabbit, a cottontail, or a jackrabbit. And even a little bit bigger than that, it could be different kinds of what are called ungulates. So things with hooves, like deer and elk, also have pellets, but they're going to be bigger than rabbits, of course. Then you get into and of course the piles of scat will be different sizes too. And for those animals usually that are producing pellets, you usually can't break it open with a stick to see what they're eating because they digest fairly efficiently. So you're not going to see anything obvious.
But you can use that size and the very distinctive round shape to determine whether it's going to be that rodent or a cottontail or one of those, what is it called? An
Ungulate.
ungulate.
Yeah.
New word that I learned today.
Yeah.
So all right, let's talk about actual just piles of poop.
Yeah, so then other piles of poop, you're going to have animals that produce something smaller versus something larger. And in the smaller range, or any of these ranges, you're still looking for shapes. So you're thinking, is it a more tubular shaped? Kind of like if you have a dog or cat, that's what I would describe those as. Or is it a plop? Just fell a distance and fell on the ground. Usually those plops are going to be larger, and that's usually going to be an animal like a horse or cow, or even a burro. Those, like I said, just kind of plop down and make a pile, and it's not really something you want to go poking in. And if it's fresh, it doesn't smell great, and if it's old, it doesn't look like much. So that's going to tell you it's one of those animals. But then the tubular ones get very interesting. So you can have smaller animals that produce these tubular scats, such as raccoons or ringtails or coatis, foxes as well. And then you have bigger animals like coyotes or even black bears. And with all of those animals, they are omnivores. So we are also omnivores. We eat plants and animals, right? Or at least we can. And same with those animals. Sometimes they're eating lots of other animals. Sometimes they're eating lots of vegetation. Sometimes they're eating both. So with that, with those diets, they can often produce waste that has evidence of what they've been eating.
Yeah.
So if you're out in the desert, it might have seeds. It could have leftovers of plant shells. It could have the exoskeletons of insects, or it could have fur from an animal they ate. So there's lots of different things that you can find in the scat while you're looking for this evidence. And while you're doing that, usually you can look at the surface of the scat. You don't have to touch it or anything. But if you want to get a little more in there, definitely do that with a stick or something. Do not touch it directly. And afterward, make sure to wash your hands or use hand sanitizer.
As with all good hygiene, it's important to wash your hands after dealing with anything related to the bathroom. But this is super cool. This is a way for us to investigate and connect with the world around us in a really cool way. So even if you aren't actually seeing the animals, you're seeing evidence that animals were there, were right there where you've been. And that's pretty neat. And so when you go anywhere, whether that's in the Sonoran Desert, here down south, in the Chihuahuan Desert, or up north, or even different places, different states, if you take a look before you go on a hike for what some of the primary animals are, you're going to be able to better focus your investigative attention to figure out what it might be. And if you take a science notebook with you or a phone that has the ability to take notes in it, and then you can go back home, you can investigate a little bit more what that poop or scat might be. Thank you so much for joining us, Taylor. I'm personally very excited to start my exploration of scat that I see on the trail.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Bye, Conservancy kids. We'll see you next time.